Hey there, this is Pastor Scott of the First Christian Church in Lathrop, Missouri, and this is your Midweek Minute. This past week on Sunday, we looked at the book of James, chapter 1, where James talks about how people go through trials, and yet when you go through trials, it helps you build perseverance or endurance. And through those trials and through that perseverance, you are made more perfect, more mature, more holy. All of that through God's working through those trials. But James ends this idea talking about trials in verse 12. And if you were here on Sunday or if you've watched the video, I don't talk about verse 12. It was an oversight on my part. But verse 12 reads like this: "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him." Now, the way this verse starts, blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. I've been through trials in my life. I've been through small trials. I've been through big trials. And in all of those things, I'm going to be honest, I have never felt blessed as I'm in the middle of those trials. I feel lost. I feel confused. I feel beaten down. I never feel blessed. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And yet, after I get out of that trial, and some time has passed, I look back on those trials, I've looked back on those things that have happened in the past, and I can see how that has been used to mature me to where I can grow more, where I have grown closer to God, where my faith in God has been strengthened because I have gone through that trial. And that's one of the things that I would encourage you to do this week, is to go back and look at some of those trials in your life and say, yes, God was there. Yes, look at how God has used that to help me. Because God will use all those trials to help mature you and grow closer to Him. But verse 12 also says this. It talks about he will receive the crown of life. You will receive the crown of life that God has promised. And who has God promised it to? To those who love Him. As you go through trials, let your faith in God grow. Let your love in God grow, especially as you look back and you see where God's been and how He's been working through those trials. Let that love for God grow, because He has made a promise, and God keeps His promises. And so when God says, you will receive the crown of life if you love Him, guess what? You will receive the crown of life if you love Him. And so if you are going through a trial right now, if you are in the midst of that struggle, remember that God keeps His promises, that He is using these trials and He will use it to mature you. And that at the end of the trial, at the end of the day, that crown of life is yours. Not because you've earned it, but because God has promised it to all who love Him. And so let these trials build your love for God. Again, my name's Pastor Scott of the First Christian Church here in Lathrop, Missouri. If you want to find out more about us, look down in the description section of the video, and I have a contact information for us there. And I do pray that this message finds you well.